moving like the sun through a brand new day. Life is ever changing, it's just made that way. We're no strangers to the hills and valleys of our times. Yes, we've made some climbs of our own on our own.
The pterodactyl ascenders were designed to be built and flown by people with no previous experience as aircraft mechanics or pilots. You can gain the necessary experience using the actual ultralight vehicle which you are learning to fly. This will require patience, self-discipline, a comprehensive training system, and a competent instructor. This film is an introduction to a time-tested system which thousands of aviators before you have used successfully. Your pterodactyl can open a whole new world of flying pleasure. But let's begin at the beginning, the ground.
Flies great, Jack. You've done a good job. It takes a lot of work to build one of these. I know, I've built mine. You spent a lot of time building it. Now you can spend some time learning to fly, or you can spend some time repairing it. It's a lot more fun learning to fly. That's nice. Some clowns just throw these together and expect everything to work right.
Now, here is some clown just throwing his ultralight together and expecting everything to work right. It's obvious he hasn't read the directions, and he doesn't have any self-discipline or patience. We'll be seeing more of him as time goes on. For now, we'll watch him and his friends get his kit pounded into shape.
Okay, now taxi down the runway at about 10 miles an hour. Before reaching the end, execute your basic stop using your brake shoes.
You mean shut the motor off and put my feet down?
Exactly. Since we have no wind today, after you get down there, turn the plane around, clear the prop, restart the motor, and taxi back.
Okay, I'm ready. Clear prop.
Okay, clear.
Now that the engine is running, the serious stuff has begun. Every step of your education from here on will have an element of risk. Your primary responsibility as an aviator is the protection of the people on the ground. Propellers are killers, and they deserve the utmost respect. Hundreds of people have been buried or received nicknames like Lefty and Stumpy because of bodily contact with the propeller. The clear prop ritual is one safeguard. The purpose of this lesson is to familiarize you with winglet control, so resist any urge to steer with your feet. By starting out slow, you will find you have plenty of time to make course corrections without over-controlling. Of course, some clowns think low-speed taxiing is boring, so they start right off with high-speed taxiing. Here's one now. He's going fast enough to make taxiing plenty exciting. Since he hasn't practiced at low speeds first, he's using too much force and doesn't have good directional control. He doesn't have good speed control either. Not only can't he keep it on the runway, he can't even keep it on the ground. But by building your speed up gradually, you'll find that stick control will take you right where you want to go. Stay below takeoff speed for now. You don't want to work on three-dimensional travel until you've completely mastered 2. You'll get your first taste of flight in lesson 3. When you're proficient at taxiing, take a break. If it's getting late, come back for lesson 3 tomorrow. It looks a little windier than it did yesterday, and our student is having some second thoughts. He doesn't have much experience yet, so he'll need some help with his decision. But let's see how our clown friend is doing. There is some indication that the wind is a little brisk for Lesson 3, but that doesn't seem to dampen his enthusiasm for flight. We'll see how he does in a moment.
What do you think of this wind?
Well, what's it say in your training manual?
If the wind is smooth, no higher than 5 miles per hour and straight down the runway, you can proceed. If it's faster or rougher, you'll have to do something else today.
Okay, let's do something else today.
Good. Let's go back to the shop and finish your ground school.
Meanwhile, the clown is going to demonstrate a ground loop. Now, ground loop is another charming aviation phrase. It is a sudden and uncontrolled turn, one of the quirks in the Never Never Land between taxiing and flying. It is easiest to do when the wind is blowing. Well, it's later in the afternoon, and the wind has died down. The student is doing a pre-flight inspection, even though he's only planning to fly a foot off the ground. For safety's sake, it is essential to verify your craft's airworthiness before each and every flight. Every lesson starts with a test of your skills from the previous lesson. The first part of Lesson 3 is a review of Lesson 2. If your high-speed taxi is controlled, smooth, and natural, you are ready for your first hop. This run will be just like a high-speed taxi, except for one thing. You're not going to throttle back just before takeoff speed. You will continue to accelerate until you are airborne. As soon as your wheels leave the ground, smoothly close the throttle. The aircraft will settle back down and land. With a low throttle setting and normal reactions, you should have a dead engine by the time you reach the ground. It is important in this step that you don't use excessive throttle, or you may take off abruptly. It is also important to close the throttle as soon as the wheels leave the ground. Attempting to regain control by adding power is almost certain to result in even greater loss of control. Brief moments of impatience can lead to long hours of repair. As you become familiar with your pterodactyl's takeoff and landing characteristics, you will increase your time aloft. You are learning very important flight skills, precise attitude and directional control at low speed and low power. Repeat this step as many times as needed to become a master of low speed, low altitude flight. After this lesson, take a long break so that these new skills can settle into your system. Lesson 4 will require more power than the previous lessons, so a new throttle stop must be installed. After reviewing the previous lesson, it's time to practice takeoffs with slightly more power and level flights at slightly higher altitudes. Repeat until you have complete control. During this lesson, you'll also be simulating emergency landings by shutting off the engine and landing dead stick. Let's see how the clown is doing on Lesson 4.
Lesson 4? I'm not even going to do Lesson 4. Why should I risk another crash? This training stuff's okay for somebody that doesn't know how to fly, but I've been a private pilot since I was 13 years old. I've been a captain on 727s. I used to fly with the Blue Angels. I'm a doctor and I own a Bonanza. The way I see it, if you needed any special skills to fly ultralights, the government would make you have a license. Next time I get in that sucker, I'm going to trust in my natural abilities and go for it.
This should be done only in very calm conditions. You'll be learning pattern flight and will want to concentrate solely on your flying skills. After your usual pre-flight, and after making sure that you have plenty of room for emergencies in any direction, take off and climb for about 10 seconds. Turn 90 degrees and straighten out. You are now flying at right angles to the runway. Fly level for 5 seconds, turn 90 degrees, and straighten out again. You are now flying parallel to the runway. Continue to the end of the runway, turning 90 degrees again. You will perform this exercise several times, developing skills in both precise landing techniques and simulated emergencies. At the end of Lesson 5, take a break, discuss your progress, and return refreshed. Now that you've rested, you are ready for the next step. This will involve pattern flight at greater altitudes and will work on sharpening your basic skills further. If you have been following instructions, you will have some basic skills to work with. If you haven't, you'll find that flight is a frightening and dangerous experience. But if you've gone through your training in a thorough and systematic way, you will have learned the basics of flying your pterodactyl. A whole new world of freedom and excitement now awaits you. Enjoy it in safety.